Hey, welcome! Today we're looking at Kaddish, episode 15 of season 4. Debuting February 16th, 1997, Kaddish places Mulder and Scully in the midst of a murder investigation where the prime suspect just might be a Jewish folklore. The episode begins in a cemetery in Brooklyn, New York, as a funeral is being held for Isaac Luria, a Jewish man who was murdered by 3 neo-Nazis. So already the episode is obviously going for a very light and fun tone. Is this little girl supposed to be a Schindler's List reference, or am I reading too much into it? Ariel reminisces about the good old times when her fiancé was killed, but for someone that wasn't there, she sure remembers a lot of exact details. Later that night, a mysterious robed figure decides to start playing in the mud, and I'm not a mudologist, but is it supposed to breathe? Mulder and Scully are on the case, but I'm surprised Mulder isn't throwing a fit, having to investigate just a normal murder and not something fun like the Fresno Nightcrawler.
Police ruled out robbery because the only thing that was missing was his videotape from a surveillance camera.
Mulder was almost worried for a second when he thought she found a different tape. The security footage was found in the room of a 16-year-old boy named Tony, one of the boys who attacked Isaac, and it looks like someone is out for revenge because Tony was strangled to death. One interesting detail found at the crime scene were the fingerprints of Isaac, the dead man. Scully thinks whoever killed the boy somehow got Isaac's fingerprints to make up some phony resurrection hoax, and now the agents are tasked with figuring out how. My money's on a cheese grater. The agents meet with Ariel and her father Jacob and ask them if they can reopen Isaac's grave so they can determine if the body was tampered with in any way, and find any evidence in the death of Tony, the 16-year-old boy. This 16-year-old boy, who looks like he was about 2 days away from retirement.
He's just a boy.
He's an animal.
Boy or not, he did murder your fiancé. I see no problem with a little eye for an eye. Jacob is a little pissed because the FBI seem more interested in protecting the killers than his own people, who have been receiving some rather interesting flyers in the mail. Oh my god, this episode is going to get my channel terminated. Ariel gives them permission to exhume his grave, but asks they leave them alone and let them mourn in peace. Mulder thinks whoever published this nice little flyer likely knows who killed Isaac and who killed Tony, so they're going to investigate. Meanwhile, a guy who looks like he has never seen the inside of a shower is watching Ariel from across the street.
Well, you know how they are. They're always trying to find ways to make money off of honest folks who work for a living.
You know, I'm gonna take a shot in the dark, but I don't think this guy likes Jewish people. This guy, Kurt, claims not to know the boys that killed Isaac, but he sure does recognize that little flyer. What are the odds that he just so happens to own a shop that prints flyers and makes photocopies, doesn't like Jews, and is located right across the street from the shop Isaac owned? While all this is going on, one of the other boys is watching it go down on a security monitor. So I'd say Kurt definitely knows who the boys are. Kurt doesn't exactly buy the idea that Isaac has returned to exact revenge, but he definitely has a target on his back, and so do the remaining young boys, who I'm guessing Kurt groomed.
Are you sure about this? I heard them, man. I'm not waiting around to find out if it's true.
Derek and Clinton begin digging up Isaac's grave after Derek overheard the agents speaking to Kurt. They're pretty damn scared because what if Isaac has returned? Although none of this would be an issue if they, I don't know, just not been murderers. Clinton goes to grab some tools so they can open the casket, and in typical 80s slasher movie fashion, is killed off screen. Mulder and Scully are on the scene and Clinton was strangled to death. What are the odds they find Isaac's fingerprints, despite him being very much dead? I think they would have smelled that long before removing the tarp. Mulder finds a book behind Isaac's head, but it just spontaneously combusts. Poor Mulder and his fear of fire. The next day at Kurt's copy shop, Derek confronts Kurt because he wants his money. His money for what exactly, I don't know. But Kurt tries to scold Derek because of what he did to Isaac. I'd say it's probably Kurt's fault this all happened to begin with. Just how long has he been filling these kids' heads full of anti-Semitic propaganda? It was only a matter of time before things went too far. What I want to know is where the hell are the parents? And why are they allowing their kids to be around a weirdo like Kurt? The agents bring the burned book to a Jewish scholar, and the book is apparently the Sefer Yetzirah, an old book on Jewish mysticism. Generally, these books aren't buried with the dead, and generally they don't just burst into flames. But the book does bear a familiar name on it, Jacob Weiss, or Jacob Weiss, Ariel's father. The agents meet with Ariel so they can speak to her father because they now believe that he's involved. But how? All they found was a book with his name on it. A book that was clearly placed with the body before it was buried, not after. But whatever, I guess it's reason enough for them to speak with the man.
I'd like to show you something. It was a communal wedding ring made in Colon.
Ariel shows them a ring her father hid during the Second World War when he was a jeweler's apprentice. He only survived because he was 10 years old and had small enough fingers to make ammunition for the Nazis, but kept the ring hidden even long after the war. It wasn't until his daughter told him she was getting married that he took the ring out, as every woman who gets married wears the ring during her wedding, as it symbolizes she is a queen and her husband a king. It's all very sappy, but there's still the question if Jacob had anything to do with the murders. The agents make their way to the local synagogue and they find Jacob, but he's a slippery little guy and disappears into the back. They find Derek, but he'll have to hang around for a minute because someone else is there with them. Someone knocks our agents to the floor, but do they not know how trigger-happy Scully can be? So it looks like Jacob did kill the kids. I guess that solves everything. Well, everything except for who the dirty guy is. Ariel arrives at the police station and she just can't believe her father could kill anyone. Jacob doesn't make things any easier for himself when he claims he was in the attic of the synagogue when he was attacked by Derek and somehow hanged him in self-defense. How the hell do you hang someone in self-defense? Wait, can you stop attacking me so I can wrap this rope around your neck? Mulder thinks there was someone else in the attic with Jacob, but he claims he was alone. Oh, but what's this dirt on his sleeve? Jacob had something of a sordid past, and Scully thinks they have their guy. He did confess, so I guess it's hard to argue with her, but Mulder thinks there's more to this. When doesn't Mulder think there's more to something? He might be right though, because Ariel and Jacob talk like they both know what's really going on. Meanwhile, super nice guy Kurt is printing off more flyers, and oh no, am I even allowed to show this? Well, I guess we don't need to worry about Kurt's little flyers anymore. Mulder meets with the scholar again and wants to know more about the book, specifically the chapter on the golem. The golem is a monster brought to life from mud or clay. Writing the word Emmet on its hand will bring it to life, but erasing the first letter Aleph, Emmet becomes Met, meaning death, which in turn kills the golem. Lots of fascinating golem talk, but Scully interrupts to tell Mulder there's been yet another murder. What I want to know is, how do you stay in business when all you seem to print is anti-Semitic propaganda? I somehow doubt there's a large enough customer base to pay your rent.
The image is fuzzy, but I think we've got a hit. There.
Oh my god. It's Isaac Luria.
That couldn't be Isaac. Last time we saw him, he was a rotting corpse. Scully thinks the tape must be part of some hoax, because how could Isaac be on it when the corpse was confirmed to be him? And this is when Mulder drops on her what he thinks they're dealing with is actually a golem. Obviously she doesn't believe a damn word he says, but Mulder also thinks it was Ariel that created it. They mosey on inside her place, but she's nowhere to be found. Her ring is also missing, which isn't so weird because she was supposed to get married today. So Jacob's just allowed to wander free after confessing to a murder? Jacob's searching around this spooky synagogue for someone, but why does everyone need to be so sneaky?
You don't belong here.
I'm your father.
Please go.
Not without you.
What's Ariel doing here, and why is she wearing her wedding dress? But as it turns out, Ariel did bring the golem to life. She was trying to bring Isaac back, but what she brought back to life was a soulless husk that only looks like Isaac.
I didn't think.
Yeah, no shit. When Mulder and Scully arrive at the synagogue, they find Jacob, who's just suddenly hanging for some reason. Mulder runs to the attic to look for Ariel, and he finds her, but also Golem Isaac.
Stop! No! Fire!
No!
Oy vey, this Meshuggah thinks he can stop a golem with a gun. Isaac gets a few licks of his own in, but Ariel holds up the ring, which seems to put a stop to the monster.
I loved you.
The tears from Ariel remove the first word from the golem's hand, ending the monster's reign. But you know what they say, it's strong and it's sudden, and it's cruel sometimes, but it might just save your life. That's the power of love. Kaddish isn't a bad episode, but it's kind of meh. I don't hate it, but it's more of a love story than anything. The whole thing is predicated on the bond between Ariel and Isaac, and her love for him is what brought him back. Well, something that resembled him anyways. I do think there is some heart, and I feel they were really trying to be sincere with the subject matter. There isn't really a whole lot for me to say about this one. I do enjoy the golem aspect, which is something you rarely see. The episode was written by Howard Gordon, a writer-producer for the series, who was also of Jewish heritage. He had been wanting to write an episode that would focus on the Jewish folk legend, the Golem, and apparently a lot of Jewish writers came in and pitched scripts about the Golem. According to Howard, nearly every Jewish writer that wanted to work on the X-Files had an idea about a Golem-centered story, but for one reason or another, they never happened. Howard was given the opportunity and was excited because it was something that meant a great deal to him. The initial ideas for the episode came after attending a wedding between a couple of friends of his. He thought, what if he gave the episode an emotional basis, and began to craft a love story that asked what would happen if someone you deeply loved was suddenly taken away from you, and what if, through the power of love, you were able to bring them back. To symbolize this love, the ring used in the episode was the actual ring the rabbi wore during his friend's marriage ceremony, and was an actual relic from the Holocaust, as the rabbi was a Holocaust survivor. Howard Gordon wanted to play the theme of love against the theme of hatred by incorporating the angle of anti-Semitism. In early story ideas, Howard was going to make the protagonists and antagonists African American, as there was some tension between the Orthodox Jewish community and the African American community, but decided against this as the subject matter was just too sensitive and not what he wanted to focus on. He didn't have much choice anyways, because it was the network that also wanted the change. Howard also reached out to the Anti-Defamation League, which sent him the flyers that he then recreated for the episode, with only minor alterations so they weren't one-to-one copies. The producers also had contact with a Hasidic rabbi who acted as kind of a consultant, but had to keep things hush-hush, as no one was supposed to find out he was a big fan of the show for religious and cultural reasons. Crew would call the rabbi up and leave messages, but not alluding to the fact that they were from the X-Files. The rabbi would call back and give them answers, but somehow someone got wind of his involvement, and that was the last they ever heard from him. When looking for a place to shoot the scenes in the synagogue, none of the synagogues in the area would allow them to shoot. So instead they found a nearby church that had a gothic-looking interior with stained glass windows and booked it for 2 weeks because it looked pretty close to a synagogue that you'd find in New York. They had to make some changes and dress it up a bit, including a Hebrew translated set of the 10 Commandments. But with their Hebrew advisor not on set that day, they sort of just faked it, hoping no one would notice. Another snafu they came into contact with was the burning book they rigged up. The damn thing just would not cooperate and refused to burn on cue. They spent hours trying to get the thing to light, and by the time it did, they really weren't prepared with how big the fire would be. As much of a hassle as it did at least lead to a fun gag reel.
Don't make burning books like they used to.
Originally, the producers wanted Ron Liebman for the role of Jacob Weiss, but when he wasn't available, they went with actor David Groh. There was a little communication mix-up just before David made his way to Vancouver, and he shaved his beard, much to the horror of the X-Files crew. Since his character required one, they instead had to go with a fake beard. Justine Michelli, who played Ariel, was actually Italian. To prepare for the role, she spent some time with her friends during a Jewish holiday. There she met their rabbi, who helped her with her pronunciations of the Jewish prayers she was going to recite. However, the expert they had on set in Vancouver gave her different pronunciations, which kinda messed the whole thing up. However, when the episode aired, Justine's Jewish friends told her she did a good job for an Italian broad. Their words, not mine. Kaddish currently sits at 6.9 on IMDb. Some interesting things I noticed is the episode seems to be rated higher with women, and that it has gotten an influx of 1-star ratings within the past 2 years, which is kind of interesting. I would probably give it a 6. It's fine for what it is, but definitely not a go-to. Next up is an interesting episode when Mulder and Scully attempt to track down a war veteran who's targeting military officials and who seems to be able to disappear in the blink of an eye. In the episode, Unrequited. So what do you think of Kaddish? Let me know down in the comments. Anyways, that's all for today. I hope you're having a great day and stay spooky.
Sunday at 9, 8 Central.
There's been another homicide.
Mulder and Scully search for a killer.
Who do you think it is? Some kind of a ghost?
Who's already dead.
Risen from the grave to avenge his own death.
An all-new X-Files.
Stop! Fire!
Sunday at 9, 8 Central on Fox.